if they show up. Let's go ahead and we can start with you, Siobhan.
Siobhan McKinney, present.
I see we have a delegate online. Irvi, if you want to just note your presence.
Irvi, present.
Perfect. And then I'll start over here with Matt and we'll work around.
Matthew Rathman, present.
Haley Glass, present.
Levi Chi, present.
Hello. Hi. Michael, present.
William Coates, present.
Sarah Ankeny, present.
Perfect. And would anybody like to volunteer to do the reading of our mission statement? Go for it, Mike.
First of all, semester. To support the evolving needs of MSU Denver students by advocating in their best interests to enhance the university experience and opportunities.
Perfect. And then looking at our agenda, does anybody have any additions or changes?
I do.
Yeah, Mike.
It's just a quick comment. At some point, if it's not too much of a hassle, can we put our delegates on the back of the agenda, Brandon? But it's our choice. It's Armando's choice. We can do it.
Who's it about?
Yeah. We can. That's just a thought. I'm like, why not? Like, they do good work. We should list them out, I think.
Matt.
Mike, are you talking about delegate updates?
No, you know how we have like all the counselors in the back of the agenda?
Okay.
We should highlight our delegates, I think. That's my personal opinion.
Any objections to adding the delegates to the back of the agenda? Cool. I don't see any problems with it then.
Do we want to make a motion? I'll make a motion to add delegates to the agenda as far as their like contact stuff.
Seconded. Any objections? Any abstentions? Perfect. We can go ahead and add them then. Thank you, Brandon. Point of order. So, Will, am I not allowed to even like motion to attempt to add Patrick's stuff onto the agenda for today?
Well, can you just say that again for the microphone, just because we're
microphone
having
for
active
online folks?
discussion?
Yeah, so basically, if he's gonna ask us to vote on certain items that would be agenda items, we can't do that because it wasn't accessible to counselors.
It was accessible to counselors, but I'm gonna go to Matt and then I'm gonna go to Mike.
That was actually going to be my point, and more for the conversation is he did post it and even made it publicly accessible in the chat. He did just miss it and putting it on the actual agenda.
Mike.
Is this for NACLand? Is that what this is for?
This is for Patrick's resolution for his golf cart event for NACLand. And was there one more thing that came out of budget?
It was
Exceeding our leadership
reallocation stuff.
Okay.
But I will say, I'd like a point of clarification. Is it, well, a question more like, is it he didn't put it on, like send it to Brandon on time, or was it Brandon potentially didn't put it on the agenda on time? If he sent it on time, and it's like a Brandon thing, then we can put it on there. But if he didn't put it on the agenda on time, that's a problem.
Brandon.
It wasn't put on the agenda request on time.
Okay, then that's on Patrick then. Yeah. That's the counselor's responsibility.
Okay. I will leave it up to you then to talk to Patrick and let him know that he would have to host a special session then in order to get that event up and running, or we'll just have to bypass that event and just not do it. And then same goes for the budget approval for those student orgs then, I presume. So we'll have to do a session to vote on those as well.
Yes. This is just a point for every counselor and future counselor present. Make sure you do your due diligence and post things in a timely fashion.
Perfect. Thank you, Will. It is 11:35, so if we have anybody here for public comment, now would be the time. Is there anybody here for public comment, either in person or online? Please make yourself known. Going once. Going twice. All right, if anybody does end up coming in between the 11:35 and 11:50 block, we will drop and allow them to have their due time for public comment. In the meantime, Mike, did you have a question, comment, concern?
Yes, we haven't approved the agenda, right?
We did not approve the agenda.
Okay, lovely.
Great point.
Can we add an update from the SACAB, special committee on SACAB to this update?
For the time being, I think we can just go ahead and do that under open floor announcements and updates, unless anybody has any issues with that, but we'll just make sure that we get to that. I'll just make a note to make sure you guys do that.
Lovely.
But would you guys like that to be added going forward? Or do we just want to do it under the regular SACAB? Matt?
I would go more either keep it under open floor announcements or its own, because it involves SACAB, it is still separate from SACAB.
Okay, perfect. We can we'll do it under open floor today, but you guys can work with Brandon to add that if you guys want it as a separate committee for future updates. With that, I have a motion on the floor.
Before we make a motion, we had 2 more counselors join online.
Hey, Amelia and Victor, do you just want to make your presence known?
Victor present.
Amelia present.
Perfect, thank you.
And they'll
Okay,
make
now
a
do I have a
motion
motion on the
to
floor?
approve the agenda.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Perfect. The agenda is approved for today's meeting. So then we can go ahead and move into new business, starting with the Earth Week resolution. Victor, I know you're online. Are you comfortable still reading it since you were the primary author and I am facilitating this meeting?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Thank you.
It is. Give me a second. It is CR 25-20, resolution to participate in Earth Week, written by Victor Delgado and Haley Glass, sponsored by ASCP, Area Sustainable Campus Program. Abstract: to build upon our relationship with the Area Sustainable Campus Program and to continue our mission of supporting evolving students' needs, the Sustainability Committee of SGTSAC wants to utilize the green purchasing funds to assist with Earth Week tabling events sponsored by ACP and other community partners. SGTSAC would use sustainability green purchasing funds to purchase catering for the event and encourage students to take form of transportation other than driving. We will then table at this event and create a station for tote bag decorating. Whereas Metropolitan State University Student Government, the Student Advocacy Council's mission is to support the evolving needs of the MSU Denver students by advocating in their best interest to enhance the university's experience and opportunities. Whereas we would like to aid our fellow students and individuals at our institution to have a more sustainable mindset when it comes to commuting to campus, the catering we purchase will be used as an incentive to encourage students to take public transportation or commute in other more sustainable manner. This event on campus is held yearly. SGTSAC will take advantage of the great opportunity to connect with students and encourage sustainable practices on campus through tabling. Therefore, it be further resolved, SGTSAC will table at this event as well as sponsor burritos and mac and cheese buffet during the tabling event on, this is the typo, it's the 23rd of April. Therefore, to be hereby resolved to assist with the program occurring during Earth Week, SGTSAC will cover the cost of catering for the event. This funding will be pulled from sustainability budget and will be approximately $750. That's also a typo. It's somewhere on the order of 1,700. So we gotta add that.
Cool. Victor, just for point of clarification, so we're just tabling on the 23rd, correct?
Yes, it would be on the 23rd.
Perfect. And then did you clarify for the catering budget if we're splitting that with CU Denver or if we're responsible for that full $1,700?
I still have not clarified it with CU Denver, so I gotta figure that
Okay.
out as well. They haven't gotten back to me.
Okay.
We're gonna have a meeting sometime next week, just to finalize everything. So I think I'll bring it up then.
Perfect. Matt.
I'm gonna motion for two friendly amendments. One to change the date, as Victor referenced that it was a typo, and also to just more make the approximate dollar amount. We can figure out the more exact number later, just so we can get this resolution passed.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and second both of those friendly amendments. Does anybody have any objections to that? Any abstentions on that? Perfect. We'll go ahead and make both those friendly amendments. So I don't know, Brandon, if you have the ability to, but if you just want to change that to the 23rd of April instead of May 16th, and then just make it approximately $1,700. And then we can work with CU to determine the exact amount because we definitely don't have the budget for that. Steven?
Victor, this is a question for you. With the purchase of the mac and cheese bar or whatever we're purchasing here,
20th.
do we have to order that, or is it being ordered? Has it already been ordered, and do we, or and we're just paying for it? I'm just looking for a point of clarification.
It has not been ordered yet, but there is, and they already have the order placed, so they're just waiting for confirmation.
Okay.
Any further questions or concerns regarding this resolution? I yield to Sky.
Could you clarify the 1,700 versus 750? I know we're changing it to 1,700 so that we can pass it today, but my question is, if we don't have another funding source come in for that $1,700, we're on the hook for the 1,700 now. So, yeah.
We have approximately 2,000 in our green purchasing funds, so we can, but it's gonna tank and we're gonna have nothing left. So it's definitely a big thing that we're gonna have to do and try to get CU Denver to actually help, and they have a history of not. So, I think. But 750 was the initial amount 2 months ago for the burritos and the catering. But I somehow changed. I think they changed like catering options or something like that.
Okay, well, if we're not planning to spend $1,700, I don't know that we should be resolving that we're going to pull it from sustainability's budget and it will be $1,700. I would like to see language in here stating that we're asking CU Denver to cover a part of it. And if we still want to, with this resolution, say that we will pony up and pay it if we have to, we can, but I think we should be mentioning that we're looking for alternative funding sources before we just resolve to pay for the whole.
Will?
Point of order, Sky. Did a counselor? They did? Okay. Just
Yeah,
making
because we had
sure.
decided you yield the time and then they're allowed the one follow-up. So I told Sky that they could have their follow-up.
Apologies, just making
No
sure.
worries. Thank you for the clarification and the point of order. Yeah, so I have the invoice sitting in front of me right now. It's looking at about, so it looks like the mac and cheese bar itself is $900, and then the remainder of that is for the burritos. So I think what we could do is we could adjust the language in there and say that we could keep it as the original $750 and just maybe make mention that it may cost up to $1,700 if CU Denver isn't able to contribute, but our goal is not to send the full $1,700 because that's not what we originally agreed to.
I yield.
Thank you.
Okay, then I'll offer a friendly amendment that someone will need to sponsor. A counselor would.
Wait, what did you say?
I said I'll offer a friendly amendment that a counselor would need to sponsor for it to be official. This funding will be pulled from the sustainability's budget and will be between $750 and $1,700. We will ask CU Denver to pay a portion of it, and we will cover the rest.
Sorry,
Will.
before I sponsor that, I want to ask Victor, with his purview and his knowledge, if that is a friendly amendment you think would be wise.
Sorry. I can make that amendment. I think. Yeah, I can make that amendment. I don't see anything wrong with that amendment.
I just
I
have
agree with
one
it.
concern on the wording of that amendment.
Okay.
We probably shouldn't tell CU Denver to pay it or shove it. I would just say that we should just say we'll work collaboratively. Is that what did you say? Sorry, I yield.
No, I didn't say pay it or shove it. No, the God,
That's totally what I heard.
This funding will be pulled from the sustainability's budget and will be between $750 and $1,700. We will ask CU Denver to pay a portion of it, and we will cover the rest.
Pay a portion? Oh, that's what I heard. Pay it or shove it is what I heard instead of pay a portion.
Yes.
That's my bad.
No, pay it or
That's
shove
why
it.
I was like, we should not say that. Okay, pay a portion. Okay, perfect.
Any other concerns with that before I sponsor that friendly amendment? Then I sponsor that friendly amendment from Sky.
1 second.
Any objections on that? Any abstentions? Perfect. We'll readjust that wording again. Yeah, that we'll ask CU Denver to pay a portion as well. Perfect. Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns regarding this resolution? Do I have a motion on the floor? Perhaps from Victor, who wrote the resolution?
Motion to pass this resolution.
Seconded.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Perfect. The resolution passes. Whoop whoop.
Whoop.
Okay, moving on to the school supply order resolution from Will Coates and Matt.
Sorry. Yes. Brandon, do you mind pulling that up? That's not, I don't know what that is. That's not
Online, are you guys able to see the resolution?
that is not the one.
This is also, yeah, theirs is the school supply order resolution. Do you have that one pulled up as well? Yeah, this one was also linked in the agenda, but. No. It would be further up than that.
Do you have your charger? Awesome. Thank you, Brandon. Is there a way to like make it bigger potentially? Take it. Yeah, thank you. Alrighty, everyone. Good morning. I have brought forth a resolution that was written by me and Matthew Rathbun and endorsed by Susana Villagomez. This resolution pretty much is trying to address our dwindling stock of free school supplies and make sure that we restock on free school supplies for food for finals, any other PR outreach efforts, and hopefully have enough after those events to have for the next cycle, for the next TSAC cycle, enough free school supplies. Abstract. To support the students by providing them with school supplies for general school needs, such as school supplies for finals week. This resolution also can support PR outreach efforts by providing students with free school supplies when TSAC tables at events like Food for Finals, Roadrunners After Dark, etc. This resolution can also stock up our free school supply inventory in preparations for the next incoming council. Whereas the Metropolitan State University student government, the Student Advocacy Council's mission is to support the evolving needs of the MSU Denver students by advocating in their best interest to enhance the university experience and opportunities. Whereas we represent a large population of students who are considered low income, and we want to support these students with some of the basic school supply costs that are barriers to education. Whereas the school supplies would be stored in the TSAC office for students to stop by and grab free school supplies, and the public relations team can utilize the supplies at tabling and outreach activities. Whereas TSAC will reassess the stock of school supplies on hand for the fall 2025 semester in August 2025 and make another resolution if needed to order more school supplies. Therefore, be it further resolved, I'm going to skip that therefore, we request that a set allocated amount of $2,000 from the PR or public relations budget be appropriated to support this resolution and further support the accessibility of school supplies for a student body during the fall semester, signed by me and Matthew Rathbun, April 11th, 2025. Is there any questions from the council or delegates?
Mike?
I have a question. It's been a minute since I've looked at the budget outlined in the Constitution. Can't y'all just buy it yourselves? Do you need to have a resolution for this?
Based on how we've done it over the last couple of years, we have done a resolution for every purchase of school supplies. And I would at least personally kind of argue that since it is $2,000, it should be a purchase that is approved by the council.
Okay.
I agree with Matthew on that. I think if we're going to spend larger sums of money, I think they should come through a vote by the council and make sure everyone feels comfortable enough to pass monies to be spent like that.
I love your fiscal responsibility and transparency. Keep it up.
Thank you. You're not wrong. It's just more of a precedent for transparency reasons. But we did discuss with Patrick and Susana before we brought this resolution. We wanted to make sure that they were comfortable enough to give us $2,000 of their funds to go for this. So we already had a discussion with them, thankfully, and they approved this. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just had a question real quick too. Do you guys know kind of like roughly what you guys are going to be getting and how much of it? I'm just a little bit concerned that the PR budget isn't 100% up to date, and I know that we have a couple other events coming up, so I just want to make sure that the $2,000 is things that it's going to go, for this semester and should hopefully be utilized. Yeah.
So we actually did create the outline of what we want to order and even showed it to at least Susanna, who again approved it.
To further address your concerns, yes, as to whether it was updated or not, we made sure during the budget meeting to update it first, the budget, and then ask for the money. If the council wants to see the budget for the, you know, the items and all that. I believe Brandon, it is in the in-process resolutions folder if you want more specifics as for the items listed, but I can give you a small overview or summary of what they are. Basically, it's just pencils, pens, folders, some vinyl stuff like Scantrons, blue books, green books, some erasers, I think a few calculators actually for like the STEM students. And then there's a few other things I'm forgetting, but yeah, oh, highlighters and stuff like that. Nothing crazy. It's like the basic calculators too. Enough to do like some STEM stuff, I imagine, but not like crazy. They're like what, $18 each. So
Perfect. And just looking at the master budget as like a follow-up, it doesn't look like anything from New Orleans is in here yet. Do we know that if we were running kind of in alliance with how that was looking, or if we went over budget with that? Because my just concern is just,
oh,
you know, because we
I guess
pulled
mine does.
the funding for that, for some of that from PR, and I just want to make sure that we're not way too over. It looks like Mike has. an
Okay,
answer to that, maybe.
so Patrick, give me an update. After reviewing the budget with the Tulane trip, we exceeded our leadership fund and have a remainder of 2517-ish. I have the exact number in the budget committee folder in the office that we are assuming my taking from PR and did we exceed or did we not exceed?
Patrick.
Oh, he is here. Oh, Jesus. Okay, sorry.
All right, so the exact number I'm not sure, but we have a remainder of 2,000, around 2,500, around that ballpark. I have the exact number that'll be crunched down within my folder. Our planning from then was to take out about $300 from sustainability, $500 from PR, and then the rest would be from the rainy day fund. And then we also have Will's accountability fund that he was asking to like just to hold off for a bit just in case. And if we need be, we can, you know, move from anything else. But from the Tulane trip, we took out 6,000 and I think 6,784 from the rainy day fund. I mean, from our leadership fund, and then the rest we're going to take out from the rainy day fund and from PR sustainability because we do not have enough. That makes sense.
Can you just do like a brief summary of where that money? So it is we went over approximately $2,500, right?
Correct. Yes, we
And
went
we're pulling
over
that
from the leadership development. From the rainy day, so the rainy day fund itself has $2,614. So that it could cover all of it, but I also don't want it to be completely out. So we're also going to take some money from the PR committee and from the sustainability committee. That way, it's not too detrimental that we're taking out, like not all of it. But that's what I'm planning as of right now, and that's what we kind of agreed upon in the budget committee meeting.
That was what was discussed in the budget committee meeting. Was that what was discussed in the budget committee meeting? Is that what you said for the last part, Patrick? Can somebody clarify that was at the budget committee meeting? Was that what was discussed?
can you ask your question? Sorry, I was in the middle of
No, you're
something.
totally fine. So
I apologize for that.
pulling the money from
Chair.
partially from PR, partially from sustainability, and partially from the rainy day fund. Was that what was discussed during budget committee meeting? I was unable to attend.
Yes.
Was it voted on?
I see that our chair might want to say something, so I will.
He hasn't put his hand back down yet, and he wasn't
Oh.
answering my question when I asked. So I don't know if he
Okay.
lost connection. Patrick, if you're still there, feel free to unmute at any time and jump in. But
Oh, sorry, y'all. I thought I was unmuted. Yeah, no, we discussed. We did not vote
okay,
because we did not have majority within our with everybody there. We did not have majority, so we did not vote on it. However, I was planning on having a meeting on Monday so we could get that addressed.
okay. Perfect.
Well, I gotta get
I-
out of here soon. I just wanted to
No
pop
worries.
in,
Thank you,
y'all.
Patrick.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm still slightly concerned about the PR's budget. However, I think it'll end up being fine just because I know food for finals costs quite a bit, and I don't know how much we're spending on that Tri-I event. But I think that looking at the budget, there's still about 12,683 in PR, so I think it'll be fine. So my concern is addressed. Does anybody have any other questions, concerns on this resolution? Steven?
Just 2 points to consider as you all are voting this. Again, the 2-lane trip did cost more than anticipated. And so we are still doing some calculations. Mind you, we are all still, there are some folks still waiting on reimbursement. So that's going to be a factor with your budget. So you may want to be very diligent throughout the course of the year. My last question, this is more of a comment for consideration. This is the second time this academic year that you all have done a school supply drive or a school supply order. And you all were able to do some of this during tabling in the fall semester. And I know in your resolution that you said some of it could carry over to next year, which is fine. But we are at the second full week in April. We technically have 4 more weeks. I'm curious how many school supplies are actually going to be used and needed, and what you all are going to do to get those school supplies out and about. Because as far as I can see, the last time we did a tabling thing or anything was either at the beginning of the semester or last semester. So I think the expectation of having folks come to TSAC to pick those up isn't the best at this point. So you all may need to consider going out and about and doing something to distribute the school supplies. And food for finals isn't just enough, because at that point, my guess is students are going to come for food. They may pick up some school supplies, but you're ordering a good amount. I yield.
Matt.
So that is a good point that we did order school supplies twice this year, but the general idea is actually for us to order them in the spring for the next year. Unfortunately, last year we didn't get them ordered in the spring for the fall. So we were actually behind, because one of the reasons why we were planning it that way is so then we can hit the ground running with like welcome week events and stuff like that. And all we ordered was stuff to fill the gaps of what was taken. For instance, for the first one, we ordered like protractors and graphing paper, but because we have a great stock of that, that was actually taken off the list. It was just replenishing what was taken.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification, Matt. I see Amelia online with a question.
Yeah, I just have something to add. The Auraria Sustainability, I forget the full name of
ASPP,
it.
the campus program.
Yeah, yes, campus program. They have school supplies of their own that gets donated, and they have a lot. I don't know if there could be a potential partnership here if we're worried about budget, or if we want to wait because the semester is almost over, but it's just something that I thought I would bring up.
Definitely. I have a quick follow-up on that, Amelia. The ASCP has reached out to us previously and has offered for us to kind of take on some of their school supplies because they get overage that they're not able to give out. And they know that we've done tabling and stuff in the past. So we actually did take on some school supplies from them as well. The majority of what they get is mostly binders, notebooks, that sort of thing. So definitely we can take more from them and kind of work in collaboration with them as well. However, I think the list of stuff we're ordering also includes stuff that they don't typically get as donations. But I do think that's a good clarification that we could definitely work in partnership with them further. I'll pass it off to Matt real quick.
And because they did donate all those binders earlier this year, that was actually, I don't even think we put it on the proposal for what to actually order, because we do already have a great supply. So if we get stuff from other departments, that's great, and it'll just change what we can order, how much we should order.
I see Sky has their hand up, so I will yield my time.
Thank you, Will.
Hi, what is the timeline on needing to order these for food for finals? I know we are ordering more for now as well, but also for food for finals. Like, what's the timeline on when we need to place that order versus get them on time for food for finals?
Matt?
Well, since food for finals is finals week, I would say probably 2, 3 weeks beforehand, just to make sure that we have the time for everything to come in.
That timeline's coming up pretty
Yeah.
much.
2, 3, 4. Finals is
Yeah, about 2 weeks.
4-ish weeks away, roughly. So we would try and order them next week, obviously, for just purpose of having them in the office anyways, but that would definitely get them in time for food for finals. Follow up?
Yeah, I think that if we are having, especially with the extra $2,500 coming out of the Tulane trip, and we're having budget considerations, I think we authorize a certain amount of funds. And we also note that we're going to try to get some school supplies from ASCP. That way we may not have to spend as much. That way we can still get the order in this week because it looks like it's getting really close.
Will, did you have a response?
I do. Just like Matt was saying, and we did receive supplies from them, but it's usually things that we already have stocked up. So this resolution actually just addresses the gaps of what we don't have for that, just to comment to what Sky's saying.
So given it's your resolution, you don't feel it's necessary to add that as a friendly amendment or anything in that manner?
Not necessarily. I think that can be worked off, like offline or on the side, but making sure that we cement those relationships for the little bit of time we got now, but more so for the next cycle coming in.
Yeah, I would concur, especially since we've already kind of established that relationship with them and making sure we get those supplies. And they are different, like larger size binders typically, and like filler stuff. So that's not something that you guys are ordering. It doesn't look like so. Well,
And then there was the concern of like whether or not, it was going to be a budgetary issue. Again, once we had clarified that there was enough money in the budget meeting, we came up with the amount pretty much to try to ease any nerves about money or whatnot. We even took into consideration the over expenditure of the Tulane trip as well.
I apologize. I see
I do-
Amelia's hand is still up. I don't know if I totally skipped over her or if your hand was just still up from your previous response, Amelia.
It was a follow-up question to what I had asked, is if we wanted to incorporate, like when we do table maybe at Food for Final, some of the other school supplies donations for the ACP, potentially in addition to what we order, but just as a way to like potentially cut down costs, because I know like things like a graphing calculator they don't receive very frequently, and that's something that we could buy. But I guess I was just trying to think of ways to cut down costs for us. Thank you, Haley.
Thank you, Amelia. I apologize for missing your hand still up. Will, did you have more to add to that? I apologize. In response or what you were finishing.
Not really. I mean, these meetings, the budget meetings, are open to everyone, and that's why I do recommend, if you can, to go to clear up your concerns. Again, just to reiterate, since Pat's not here, unfortunately, we spent about 2 to 3 hours just making sure that we had like updated the budget with him, taking into consideration everything, the ASCP donations, filling the gaps where students' demand is most at right now, making sure we have enough stock for that for any events still happening this semester. So, I mean, if there's still concerns about that, I mean, we can bring down the amount to ease those concerns. But I will say, if that is the case, counselors need to do their due diligence and attend those budget meetings if they can. because that's what those meetings are for.
I have a quick response to that. I think our budget chair should also do due diligence in making sure that the budget committee can attend those meetings. It doesn't entirely fall on the counselors for not attending, because I know the previous one was scheduled the day before and it was at a time when I could not attend, for clarity's sake. However, I think for sake of time, I think we're majorly in agreement. So do I have a motion on the floor in regards to this resolution?
I'll make a motion to vote on this resolution.
Seconded.
I apologize, Siobhan. I see your hand is up, but the motion has been made, so we're going to go ahead and go forward with it, and then I'll address your question. Is there any objections to the passage of this resolution? Any abstentions? Perfect. The resolution will go ahead and pass. And then Siobhan, did you have a question in regards?
Haley, I just wanted to interject something just before I forget. So yeah, I'm cool with the resolution. Yes, I vote yes for it. So there's a question that I have because I have to soon be quickly leaving. All right, I wanted to put forward the resolution from last week, but Will told me I didn't need to get it to vote on it because he was going to work on it or bring it up. So I just wanted to make sure I'm able to make a motion for that. Did you hear me?
Will, since this is not on the agenda, what is? Yeah, Will.
So what Siobhan is referring to is the accountability verdict, which was sent out for everyone to see, as I'm going to bring it up for my updates. It's not necessarily something, yes, it's not necessarily something that has to be voted on in this meeting. It's more for the council to hear that verdict, and we do suggest certain things for the council, but as it stands right now, the accountability committee does not have the power to pretty much tell the council, and that's another discussion for another day. But basically, yes, that will be addressed in the updates.
Okay.
Perfect.
Oh, thank
Okay.
you.
I do want to give
That's all I
time.
had.
Thank you, Siobhan. I do want to give time. We do have Dr. Simpkins here. We do not have this on the agenda, which is accidental on Stephen's part, because we had discussed this and it was in the group chat prior that Dr. Simpkins would be attending. There was an email that came out in regards to what we would like to discuss with him. However, it missed the agenda. But given Dr. Simpkins is here, I'd like to motion to give him time.
I second that.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Perfect. We will make sure we get that on the agenda going forward. But Dr. Simpkins.
Good morning. Wait, good afternoon. As President Davidson always says, where there's a will, there's a waiver, and you've got two wills here, so there's a waiver. So just a couple things. First of all, I want to say congratulations to all of you who've been working on the elections. Any clue of where our vote count is yet? Stephen's going to get it. But when I ran into folks on Tuesday or Wednesday on my way to get ice cream, they were celebrating the number of votes. So that's awesome. I know I'm going to come back to a couple of bigger issues. Other things going on at the university, just for your awareness, we are in the middle of the university's budget setting activities, and I think someone sits on up, back, and goes pretty consistently. Okay, great. But just the high level, we did end up getting likely an additional $3 million from the state for the university. But when you take the need to give raises to our faculty and staff and the mandatory cost increases, that still leaves us in a deficit. And so it'll be a really, the work this year is on balancing what are our competing needs and where can we find those efficiencies. Also, 2 weeks ago, we started to get the university's employee engagement survey results. And I just want to say I got a chance to look at the all of the student employee responses across the entire university this morning, and they are really, really excellent. And what most stood out to me is that most student employees really enjoy working in their departments, and more importantly, have a great relationship with their direct manager. And we've done a lot of work in that space over the last few years, so just want to celebrate that. Next week is also National Student Employee Appreciation Week. And so please do celebrate all the student employees that you know. Okay, now the stuff that you asked me to talk about, some stuff you didn't. So we've had a couple of really good meetings about the JSSB badge access proposal, and I think we're making some progress. Essentially, we wanted to connect with AHEC to see how their policy on immigration enforcement does apply here. And then Jim Carpenter, our VP for Finance, myself, General Counsel, met with the AHEC General Counsel and Chief of Police earlier this week. Tuesday, Wednesday, one of those days, some day that ended in a Y. Thank you, Haley, for laughing at my joke, as bad as it was. I think we're mostly in alignment. There's one outstanding legal question that we're just trying to get through based on the nature of this building. But I'm hoping by the end of the day, I should be able to reach back out to the sponsors of the proposal to let them know the right way forward. But we should be able to move pretty quickly after that, which means get it to Dr. Davidson for her approval. She hasn't been read in yet. Or she's been read in, but she hasn't voiced her sentiments. Federal impacts, pretty much still status quo. Last week, the work was really around supporting our international students. You probably heard that I think it's at this point about 20 Colorado international students have lost their visas. We have not been affected. So all of our international students are still have visas. We have a little over 100 international students at the university. For those of you who may not know, international students work through Ash Lance in the Office of the Registrar, who is the person that manages their visas and communicates with them. And they all know who Ash is. Our faculty and staff work through Human Resources. To my knowledge, we haven't had any impacts on faculty and staff either. And I'll differentiate sort of direct impact like having a visa revoked and indirect impacts like operating in a culture of fear or operating in a culture where you're not sure your speech or your research will end up getting you targeted. And so we're very aware that folks are dealing with that and offer support where we can. Otherwise, all of our programs still operating, all of our DEI staff still employed, haven't changed any names of programs, and am really proud of that and the work that we're doing at the university. And then student housing, the new building and the C2 Hub moving forward as planned. There have been no hiccups. We should be asking the board to look at the debt financing or the debt issuance in June. So that'll be a really important board meeting for this project, but we are still on track for fall 27 opening of our first ever student housing and the new classroom to career hub space. Also should be on track around campus dining. Lots of conversations about that. We've had some interested national parties. I don't think anything will happen for this coming year in terms of the commuter student meal plans that we discussed, but there may be an option for folks to buy into those meal plans, but nothing mandatory. But hopefully you'll see when you come back in the fall some improvements to our campus dining if we're able to move this partnership forward. So, grill me.
Questions, Mike?
I have a very specific question related to the Tivoli, and
sure,
if we can't find it in the AHEC records, then I'm going to ask MSU because they better have a record of this. There's a Tivoli charter that is currently inaccessible to me. That either I know MSU probably has records of this, but AHEC makes it very hard to find their records that I would love to have access to read.
Yep, I'll see if I can find it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have another question? Yeah, it's part of if it's part of Tivoli Reimagined, but it's more for SACAB. This is more just a light read. I like it.
So you're sort of interested in what foundational documents say who gets space in the Tivoli, who pays, who doesn't pay, how does the space allocation process work?
Yes.
Yep, I believe I have seen that document in the past, and so
Yes.
if I don't have it, I will find it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Bill?
The follow-up question on the Tivoli Reimagined.
Yeah.
Like Mike was saying, some facts are kind of hard to access. And I was just wondering if you knew more about whether like the timeline for that and what that would look like for the spaces. And the reason why I'm asking is I'm thinking about our TSAC space in the future, maybe next year, the future cycles, what that would look like if we're going to be potentially moved out of there and then reallocated, or if we're going to be moved back in the same space. I
Yeah.
don't know if you have any.
Well, what I'll say in terms of timeline, the CFO of AHEC told me that likely no like shovels in ground or I guess hammers to walls would take place for at least 2 to 3 years if everything goes smoothly. So they have identified the architect. The architect will actually lead that process of what do we want to do in that building, and that starts with what's the for everything we want to do, what's the total amount of square footage we would need, and then we look at options of does that mean we need to build on, does that mean we need to be more efficient in our space usage. And that all takes a while, and there's lots of conversations. I'll tell you where my team has started, which might be a good exercise for you all. We are working on a what must be true for the Tivoli from our perspectives. And so all of the student affairs directors are going to have input into that. And it's things like the Tivoli must continue to be the hub of student engagement on campus. The Tivoli should be extremely accessible, both in terms of when it's open and for folks with differing abilities being able to manipulate or maneuver the building, which is a real concern of mine right now and has always been. But I think any question of investing in the building right now, we have to sort of say, okay, is this an investment that is worth, there are potentially 3 more years of students who need access to that space. Is the X dollar of money worth improving the students' experience for those 3 years, or do we wait and try to do that work when the building gets remodeled? There's a very specific example that I'm thinking of with the LGBTQ Student Resource Center that has a empty raw space behind it that is theirs. We're just debating whether we invest in, we have to build out the space. It doesn't meet code requirements to use now. So that's sort of the decisions that we're making on there. Our representative to the Tivoli Steering Committee, there's 2, James Mejia and Taylor Tackett from the university sit on that. And I don't know if we have student representation on that committee.
Which committee? I'm sorry.
For the Tivoli Reimagined Committee?
Yes, it's Victor or Mike.
Okay. Siobhan.
Siobhan.
Okay, awesome.
So I was wrong.
Well, that's okay, Siobhan. We're glad you're there.
Perfect.
So I think once we get our document, Taylor Tackett is working on that, leading that. Maybe it would be good to share it with TSAC. But I think certainly your voice as students about what you want to happen in the Tivoli. And then your very specific question, Will, I wouldn't say, yes, you'll go right back into the same space, because what if you get better space in a location that you like more? And so I think go in with a high level, this is what we want to be true about the TSAC space in terms of what kind of space we need access to, where we'd like it to be located, who we want to be adjacent to, what we want to be able to do with the space. That's the most important thing right now. But the work itself, because we can't just shut down that building, just count on it being years of remodeling work inside the building. When I was at the University of Maryland, they redid the student union, and I think it took about 7 years to go through.
Follow-up
question. Do you have maybe an idea as to if when they're renovating the Tivoli, right, if it will be inaccessible, or is it going to be like layers or certain rooms for a little bit and then break it down by parts, or is it the whole thing goes dark?
I think it will be a segmented section by section remodel. That's typically how projects like that are done when you can't leave the building completely. It does mean paying, 1 year. Whoa. That's not good.
You all okay over there?
Ouch. Yeah, 1 year, the food court might be closed. 1 year, the student engagement spaces may be closed. 1 year, the meeting spaces may be closed. So it'll be a lot of, side spaces for other projects. But remember, it's a few years out, so it probably won't affect anybody in this room. And I would say also remember, starting this summer, we'll have some pretty massive construction projects on campus, from the student housing on the ball field, the old ball field gravel lot, to the health institute outside West Classroom, to the public safety building, which is, I think, slated to go where the modular units are, along with the renovation of the PE event center on the backside, the pool space. So lots happening.
Perfect. We've got a couple of people online with questions, so I want to get to Sam, and then I'll get to Victor's chat, and then Victor. So Sam.
I think Victor's is a direct response. Mine's slightly unrelated, so he can go ahead of me.
Okay, cool. Victor, did you just want to read your chat, or did you want me to read it?
I was just gonna speak a little bit on it since I was sitting on the reimagined committee for a little bit, and I was also on the selection committee for the architect. I'm just gonna say that it's gonna change a lot, like a lot. But as Will said, it is gonna be segmented. Like part of the building's gonna be closed, and then they're gonna reopen it back up, and then for 6 months it's gonna be closed, and they're just gonna open it back up. I made sure to stress that this is going to be a huge disruption for students on campus. A lot of students use the resources here, especially food court and stuff like that. So I made sure to stress that during the meetings while I was on the committee. But I hope that the other students on that committee could pass along that message as well. And I think it's really adamant that we make sure that we try to find a way to make it equal space for all three institutions as well, because 3% of CCD is in Tivoli, which is wild. So
Fun fact, the Plaza building was this campus's first student union before the campus bought the Tivoli. We're talking 1980s, but yeah.
Perfect. Okay, now I think we can move over to you, Sam.
Cool. Yeah, mine is just answering a question that was brought up earlier about elections. We just were getting the vote numbers, and we are at 185 approximately right now, which puts us on par for last year after that first week. So hopefully next week will bring us a lot more. More on that later, but just because it was asked earlier, I wanted to give a response.
I see a delegate with a question. Does anybody want to yield?
I yield my time.
You will.
Thank you for being here. I have a couple questions. So the additional $3 million state dollars we got, how does that number compare to the $5 million deficit we had last time we spoke?
Yeah.
I know you mentioned salary raises. I don't know if that was considered in the $5 million number. What is, if you can tell us, what is the one hiccup being investigated on the JSSB badge access protocol? And I have a couple things I can only speak once. If tomorrow we had student visas revoked, what's the university's plan? That's it.
Okay. So you may have to remind me your question.
Yeah.
What was the first one?
The money.
The money. So the first number, when we were talking about $5 million deficit, was predicated on potentially getting $2 million from the state, and then having $7 million that we would need to cover compensation increases and mandatory costs. Now, the tuition setting, we got a little bit, the state said we could go up 3.5% in tuition. But remember, at MSU Denver, that only impacts new students because everybody else has the tuition lock. So we're still, I haven't heard the last deficit number from UpBack, but it's less than 5 million. But we're still going through it. Second question was the hiccup?
The hiccup.
Yeah, it's about the nature of this building, and is it a public or private building, and on what grounds can we limit access? But that's a question we should be able to answer by the end of the day.
Okay, and then if tomorrow we had student visas revoked, what do we do?
So this is the unfortunate answer. There's not much we can do, right? We cannot violate the law. And if a student's visa is revoked and they are told by the State Department that they need to leave immediately, we can't countermand that, right? That said, what we're trying to do is make sure that students have as much support and advice as possible. And sometimes that means access to legal advice. And certainly if similar to our students who are undocumented or dreamers, we try to get as much pro bono legal advice, particularly whenever a student might need it. I am really hopeful that that doesn't happen here, but we continue to monitor. And by monitor, I mean we are looking every day to make sure that in the federal database, we're not seeing any of our visas being revoked. We do know that there have been some problems where students have gotten letters, but the database still says they have an active visa. And so we're also sharing with international students that if they get one of those letters, they need to come talk to us immediately. We're also sharing that international students likely shouldn't leave the country unless it's a real necessity right now. And we're giving them letters about their status as an international student at MSU Denver if they do leave the country to carry with them.
I have a follow-up.
I'll yield for the one follow-up and then I'll get to you, Matt.
Yeah. What if a student taking classes, visa revoked, told they need to leave by the State Department, they choose to leave, they have the ability to leave. What is MSU Denver's, can MSU Denver try to refund tuition, help them shift to online to finish out the semester? What would that look like?
That's a great, I'm sorry, yes. Yes to all of that. And it really just depends on the student, the classes they're taking, the academic program they're in. But we've had many cases where even domestic students that we need to pivot into online modality or come up with some other plan to help them finish their degree. So we will be as flexible and nimble and really individually focused in those situations.
Matt?
So going back to the international students, most of the visas, from my understanding, that have been revoked across the state and I think the nation have been the F1 visas. But I also saw an article in the news that referenced MSU Denver does not have any F1 visa international students.
I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. Hold on one second. So that, hold on. Okay, we have most of our visas are F1 visas. The one that we don't have is J1 visas. So J1 visas are where your home country sponsors you to go to the United States and study. It's usually an academic partnership. If we have any of those, it's a very minor number. F1 is the sort of standard student visa. So we do have about 100 F1 visas, and none of them have been revoked. Sorry, I had to make sure I was not confusing F1 and J1.
Any other questions or concerns for Dr. Simpkins while we have him here? I think we have you a little bit longer than you were planning on being here anyway, so if there's no further questions, I think we can just let you go unless you have any last final comments or anything.
Congratulations to Victor, who's online, who was a finalist for Colorado Student Leader of the Year. And will be with me, and Levi's also going to be joining for the big Colorado Leading Colorado Luncheon next week, where they identify and celebrate the Student Leader of the Year from across the state and the 9 News Leader of the Year, which is usually a nonprofit leader that you'll see on 9 News if you watch the local TV. So congratulations, Victor, and thanks for coming, Levi.
Perfect. Thank you again, Dr. Simpkins. Perfect. And with that, I think that leads us into announcements and updates. Starting with our Board of Trustees, Michael Warner.
Not for very long, but I do have actually an update. Well, an announcement, at least an article here. So, if y'all read the Denver News, there was a lawsuit launched against AHEC in regards to some. I'll read the article here. Some of the ways the campus police responded to the removal of the protesters last spring. Oh, sorry. So yeah, there was a lawsuit launched against AHEC, more specifically the police department on campus, area campus police department. This lawsuit only entails AHEC. The three institutions were not made up in the suit, and with that, MSU's kind of official stance back then and now was they advised against what AHEC ultimately did, which was call the police and all that stuff. That was their statement then, and it was their statement now. I was there in those meetings. I can confirm that. So that's just an update, high level update from here. If anything else happens, what I might do is I might call a session with counselors to form a brief y'all, but just keep that in y'all's attention. That's all I have though. So
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. Do we have any updates coming out of SACAD?
SACAD now.
Sorry. Said Mike.
What?
Nothing.
Any updates coming out
go
of
first, then
SACAD?
we'll do me next.
So this meeting this morning, we discussed about a resolution to pass for swag items, and it was passed. And then the more important matter, I would say, was we were looking at the bylaws of SACAB. I do think if you have time as a counselor or someone who's interested in SACAB and how they operate, I would definitely recommend anyone in this room or online to attend those meetings to give your input on potential changes for SACAB. I also do have the document of their bylaws currently and what is, what the other institutions are putting on those bylaws with their notes. I would definitely recommend, if you're interested, just reach out to me and I can send you that copy of those bylaws. And please put your input if you are interested. I would love to see it. Me and Matthew and Siobhan would love to hear what the council has to say and delegates as well. And that is all.
Yes, you may.
Okay, well, in terms of the ad hoc committee on determining if SACAB is a good fit for us, that's what we'll call it. We had a good discussion yesterday. I think that's when it was, and we have some action items. I wrote them down on paper that I didn't bring. But so one thing was definitely getting the Tivoli charter. The Tivoli has a charter. That's what it was built for way back when in the ancient times. And that's kind of explains what it's used for. That's why I asked Dr. Simpkins for it. I have a core request filled out. I'm gonna send Skip here soon. Just to have that document, because that document's been missing, at least from our possession, for a while. Secondly, next thing, there's a new board member on ABOD. I couldn't tell you his name. But our goal is to make it nice with him. He wants to be kind of champion for students. Love that for him. Let's build that relationship some more. What was the third one? There was a third action. Oh, this is what I wanted to talk about. A determining factor I got out of that meeting was we need to change how SACAB is implemented in the council. I think it's not liability, but it does better for us to instead have this be an elected position, have this be more of an appointed position, because an appointed position you can kind of it means the council's kind of on the same page. The council's on the same page who you want to send to represent in this body. Whereas like someone who runs for kind of on a whim, like I did 2 years ago, I had no idea what SACAB was. I still don't have an idea what SACAB does to this day. So the question is to the Constitution people, when is the last week I can submit amendments for the Constitution?
4 weeks before our last meeting.
Which is
Next week? Is it next
today.
week? Today?
Is it today?
Isn't it? Hold on. When is our last meeting?
I don't think we've scheduled a last meeting.
Because we don't meet on finals week, so the last meeting would be May 9th, if I'm correct.
Technically, May 9th is not a meeting, that's inauguration.
So our last meeting would be May 2nd then. So we are exactly 4 weeks out
Yep.
from our last meeting. So all amendments would have been needed to be presented today, correct? Unfortunate.
Well, I think we can get around that rule.
I yield.
Also, I don't think we have the power to do that. Colorado revised statute says the SACAB representatives have to be voted on by the student body, not by the.
No, it doesn't.
Just
We
Mike.
we looked at that. They need to be not voted on by the student body. It's the student government, the governing body of the students. This is an argument we looked at, but we can't do that. So, and also I think in terms of the weeks rule, we're technically elected until June. June is when we're officially out of session. The new council kind of fits in. I don't think we've determined a last meeting date as a council. So I don't see why we can't meet that last week and vote on amendments. That's just my opinion though.
I believe Matt had his hand up first and then Will. I just will have a real quick point of order before I get to you guys. You guys could just make sure not to speak to me when you want to talk, but raise your hand. If it's a follow-up, maybe do like a 2-finger, something like that, so that we're not just yelling at me when you want to talk. Please and thank you.
Some other things out of that meeting and stuff I've also been finding out is how many different policies AHEC is not enforcing. Because in fact, today I was looking at some of their policies and their governance policies. SACAB and FACAB aren't referenced in any of them. And also in one of their policies, it says they have to have a policy library that does not exist.
Just to follow up on Mike's comment about, we are representatives till June, right? June, like early June. It is within the council's power to hold meetings until we are done. Unless there's some other statute somewhere that's not in the Constitution that says otherwise. So technically, we could post amendments till we hold a meeting from that date, 4 weeks or whatever it is. And so there hasn't been a precedent established for that so far. And I would actually urge the council to go with the president being more flexible with that. Meaning if we need to put forth an amendment for the Constitution that and this might be asking a lot from counselors, but that we meet for a meeting 4 weeks before that deadline, even if it's our official meeting after or for inauguration is that date, if that makes sense. We still have that power, is what all I'm saying. To
And
Mike's point.
yeah, just for clarification on that, would that be including old council and new council since that'll be post inauguration, or would that just be the current council would still? Okay,
Current.
perfect. Was it Matt and then Mike, or Mike, did you still have a hand? Matt and then Mike, perfect.
I actually want a clarification because I don't remember the exact language in the Constitution. Part of me feels like it might have actually stated 4 weeks before the end of the semester. I don't know specifically, but that's why I want to see clarification and see the document really quick. My computer's just not working.
Do you want to pull it up real quick, Will?
My
Accountability chair.
computer's also dying, unfortunately.
My computer is also about to die,
I got it.
unfortunately.
Thank you, Stephen. But I do believe it is not semester. It's last meeting. I believe so, but please double check that.
Mike?
Let me add either or. This would not affect this year's. So my big old ballot thing, which if say I can't pass it or whatever, I'll pass it off to Cy. He kind of knows what's going on there. It wouldn't affect elections till next year. So the following year's elections, and basically what the amendment would say is, hey, this is now a appointed position. And the reason I know it's not elected is because CU Denver, they hire they can, if they don't have an election, they can hire the representatives. So they've done that multiple times where can't fill that position, they hire them. But basically what it would do is just take SACUB off the ballot, and when we vote in chairs and stuff the following semester, what you would do is you would appoint, hey, the council would vote on these two veterans of whatever who know what SACUB is to go into SACUB and represent us. Ideally, someone who has the more institutional knowledge would be awesome in that role, because a lot of people go in there kind of blindsided with that. Steven has a hand up.
Steven?
Point of clarification. As per the Constitution, via Article 4, Amendments Section 1 process, no amendments can be proposed within the last 4 weeks before the end of the semester. So there is still time.
There's still time then, yeah.
Oh, there is.
And
So-
the semester would be May 16th?
Yep. So technically, the end of the semester is May 16th. So that week 1, 2, 3, your last day is the 25th to propose amendments.
So,
Thank you, Steven, for finding that. Mike?
so as per the Constitution, and say I introduce this amendment next week for review, it could be voted on the 25th meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Brilliant. Lovely. Thank you for that clarification.
Steven?
Just keep in mind, though, as you all are thinking about amendments, we do have a current election in place. So any amendments that you do, the election process will be over, but it is important to use discretion as you all create your amendments.
Matt?
Point of clarification, it says they cannot be proposed in that time, so we can still propose it the week before and vote on it that next week.
Yeah.
Because it says proposed, not passed. So if we have it come in on the 25th, we can still vote on it the next week.
So it could be proposed the 18th, the 25th?
Yeah.
And just those two, the
Yeah.
next two meetings? Okay, perfect. Thank you for the clarification. Victor has a question in the chat. How would that affect votes for this year's election? Does the people who ran this year just void? No, we clarified that, but I'll let Mike, I guess, address it again.
Yes, so this, I'm gonna write it very specifically where it will affect next year's election. Yeah, this year, I mean, if they choose to want the sake, I'm not sure. I mean, I know Sai is on that ballot. I'm not sure who else is on that ballot, but if they choose to want to do it, that's up to them. That's not, I'll be long gone by then. But it would be in effect your election that we took place in year 2025,
Yeah.
26.
But I'm pretty sure there's two people running for that position right now. So, like, are
Yes,
they
this
going to
would affect
be
them.
suggested to be
No.
SACAB next semester, or is it just SACAB votes don't matter this year if you're going to submit the amendment?
No, this wouldn't take effect till next election, Victor. It just takes them off the ballot, and then basically 2027 is when you'd appoint them that year.
I have Will with a follow-up.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. I meant to one finger, right? Sorry, no, I'm just trying to. I see that Sky has a follow-up, and I want to yield my time to Sky.
Hi. I think that if you're going to edit the elections process from our constitution and the election's already started, I know you're wanting it to go into effect next year. Just let next year's council do that. Maybe leave a note for next year's council to do that, because they're the ones that will be closer to that time when this is going into effect, and they'll have more time to deliberate on it if it wouldn't go into effect then anyway. They could collect students' opinions on it. They could do lots of different things. I don't think rushing it in. I think there's time to rush things. There's times to not, and I don't think this is one of those.
Mike?
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to collaborate with next year's council. So Sai was in that meeting. I'm not going to rush it. It's not rushing it through. I mean, this is it's not rushing it through.
Victor, did you have a hand I saw?
I would have to agree with Sky on this one. I don't see the need to rush and try to find a deadline if it's going to not affect until next year's election, which is spring of 26, which is a year from now. I think they're going to have plenty of time to deliberate during the next year's council.
Perfect. And then since this is just kind of not official, since this isn't official yet, you guys can discuss that further outside of the meeting, but I want to move forward with updates. Except for, hey, we're in a meeting. I want to move over to our next set of updates. So we're going to move over to elections manager, Sam.
All right. I got a couple updates for y'all. As I said before, we got the votes in as of this morning. I misspoke. I said 183. We're actually at 188, which puts us ahead of where we were last year, which is great already. So next week's votes will definitely tip us over the edge, and we'll see how close we get to that 400 goal. A couple updates on election schedule. Next Tuesday, April 15th, we have our Drag Out the Vote event. That's going to be from 11 to 2 in the Multicultural Lounge. We're going to have 2 drag queens there. It's basically just going to be a drag show, and then we're going to have polling stations there also, so it's going to be a good time. I think there's supposed to be food, so y'all should come to that if you can, and then hopefully that'll bring in a lot of votes as well for all 3 schools. I've got outdoor tabling next week, Monday, Wednesday. Just so folks know, and then we're in the Multicultural Lounge Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. We're also running a golf cart next week on Monday and Thursday in the afternoon, which should be pretty fun. So keep an eye out for that. As far as elections tabling coverage goes, I want to give a huge shout out to Haley and Ani so far. They've been really, really helpful covering the table when I'm in class or when I'm working on other stuff. So I really appreciate that. Right now, we've got CU and CCD doing some coverage too while I'm out of town. So that's been pretty cool. So that's all the stuff on the schedule, I think. I'm checking my notes here. As far as general elections things, I do know, for anyone who hasn't heard it yet, but I'm just going to restate this, we are back down to 12 candidates. Melina dropped out of the race. So just a final word on that if anyone didn't see that update. However, I want to say that shouldn't bring people down as far as their energy to get votes, right? More votes is good for all of us. It makes the student council look more legitimate. It lets more students know about student government, which is helps with outreach a lot. And we still have a big race in trustee. So I think it's important to get votes out for that one. And we have our referenda. And I think that's another thing where just raw amount of votes on that is really, really important for the success of the council in the future. So I just want to keep that voting morale up with everybody. Like I said, huge thanks to everyone who's helped me out with the elections process so far. It's going really well, and I'm excited for next week. Like I said, I am out of town this weekend, but I'm online, pretty accessible the whole time. So if anybody needs anything, feel free to Teams me or email me. I should respond pretty quickly. That does it for elections. Thanks, everyone.
Perfect. Thank you, Sam. And quick shout out to Sam for doing those long, long days of tabling as well. Matt, did you have a question, comment, concern?
I just had a comment. So in relation to elections, me and Siobhan presented about the Rowdy's Corner stuff, but we also encouraged all the faculty senate to encourage their students to vote. While I was hanging flyers for my candidacy, I was also hanging up some of the flyers for the general elections ones through Plaza, West, Central, and Arts. And I would encourage any counselors who want to join me after the meeting to flyer some of the other buildings, including aerospace and the engineering building, with the generic flyers as well as anybody who's running their flyers.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. All right, moving over to accountability committee. Will.
Awesome. I'm gonna move next to Brandon for this piece. But as I'm walking over there, thank you to all the counselors present for this meeting, in person and online. I did want to start out with a big shout out to your time commitment to TSAC and advocacy for students. With that, since the change of or the ratification of the new constitution and sunshine laws falling under my responsibilities as a committee, it has come to my attention that last minute changes for meetings for counselors' presence might conflict with some of those laws, if I'm not mistaken, Stephen. Do you mind filling in those gaps for me, please?
Sure, thank you. This is not in reference to the discussion that's about to happen, but this is mainly for how we as a board kind of operate. And I know Colorado sunshine laws are kind of all over the place and there are a lot of interpretations. So there are 5 main points that need to be considered. And this is the short and sum and brief of it, right? Open meetings requirement, virtual meetings, attendance and quorum, recording and minutes, and executive sessions, if that's applicable, or closed sessions, right? So in terms of the open meeting requirement, any meeting that where public business is being discussed, so any meeting that you all as TSAC are going to be conducting any business, for you all as business, voting, anything where you're making a decision as a council, that has to be open to the public. And it also needs to be accessible to the public, whether or not it's in person or virtually. We offer a hybrid model, so based on that, that works really well. In Colorado Sunshine Law, virtual meetings are allowed, but we still must meet the same transparency standard for everyone to be able to attend. What that means is announcing the meeting in advance, providing public access to this forum, and ensuring that folks can observe and, when appropriate, participate. That is something that, as we move, we are an in-person operation here. And I get things come up, but as folks say, hey, I cannot make it, that can severely impact this body and how this works. The standard was set forth at the beginning of this academic year that we would be an in-person body. And so it is really important to communicate. That will allow Brandon to do what he needs to do. And overall, we can appropriately advertise it. We've only had one instance where we kind of met in person, but went remote, and we really didn't have the ability to promote that effectively. So that's that. Attendance and quorum, you all know this, but quorum rules still apply in virtual settings. If quorum isn't present, official business can't be conducted. All attendance should be documented, and all participants should be clearly identified for the record, which again, Haley and Levi, you all do a great job at doing that. You call it when they pull that in. The fourth, I would say, aspect of Colorado Sunshine Law are recording and minutes. Virtual meetings should be recorded and have detailed minutes that capture who is present, what was discussed, and any votes that are taken. Brandon is our rock star who does all that. Thank you, Brandon, for doing that. So we're fine there. And then executive sessions or closed meetings. While it's rare, any non-public sessions must follow specific procedures under law, which really is you can discuss things, but no decisions can be made. It doesn't happen all the time. A good example is, hey, we're going to close our meeting. We need to have an internal discussion about behavior or conduct or decorum in a meeting. That is a completely appropriate thing, a reason to close a meeting for any point to the public, because that you're not making a decision, you're talking about internal matters and functions. So again, it's fine to have virtual meetings, it's fine to have virtual attendees, especially with our hybrid structure. However, this is for everyone, not just our folks online. Things come up, people get sick, people may not be able to make it. We need to be communicating that ahead of time, because this body has an obligation to be able to be accessible and available for everything. I yield my time back to Will.
Thank you, Stephen, for that. I'm still getting familiar with the laws, so please have some patience with me on that. Moving on to the next thing. Last meeting, Friday, April 4th, right? I wasn't there, unfortunately, but I heard there was a situation that took place with a resolution that was proposed that meeting. And after meeting with my committee and other members that are pertinent to the resolution and advisors, and we came to a conclusion, the three of us, me, Pat, and Matthew. I will read that verdict to the council. Through much deliberation, including the context and evidence of the situation that took place at the Friday meeting on April 4th, 2025. With a unanimous vote, it has been ruled that CR 25-19 resolution to endorse the Kelly Loving Act, HB 25-1312 vote was unclear and that the motion had passed. Therefore, the 4 votes out of 7 present councilors to pass that resolution were enough to pass this specific resolution. The Accountability Committee came to this conclusion after seeing that the council as a whole had followed precedents within the interpretation of Article 2, subsection 2 legislation. And that is council members introducing bills must ensure that each is correctly titled as either a resolution or amendment. A resolution is a bill that aims to pass policy and only needs a simple majority to pass, whereas an amendment alters this constitution and requires a 2/3 majority to pass. Because the council had not clearly established to the councilors and delegates what president was to be used for voting, and the fact that the council had used both presidents before Friday's meeting, we had determined it would be considered unfair to change and switch between different presidents when the council sees fit without properly stating so prior to voting or setting a precedent before voting moving forward. It also has come to the attention of the Accountability Committee that there is confusion between the definition of simple majority and supermajority. To clear up the confusion about the definition and what the next steps are, the Accountability Committee suggests the following to the council moving forward. There we go. To reinstate the original resolution, quorum is 51%, rounding up to the next whole councilor of the total councilors with voting power that does not reach the threshold to vote for amendments. Simple majority means 51%, rounding up to the next councilor of the present council, total councilors with voting power. And supermajority means 75%, rounding up to the next whole councilor of the present councilor, total councilors with voting power. The Accountability Committee has also determined and suggested that moving forward, we use the president of the present council voting members and apply the definitions of quorum, a simple majority, and supermajority listed above. In deciding this president, the Accountability Committee has referenced Article 2, Section 1, the meetings. These meetings use Robert's Rules of Order as a guide and not a mandatory rule book, and include the role of co-chairs, vice chair, having no additional powers but that necessary to facilitate the meetings. Due to this language, Robert's rules were intended as a guideline during times of confusion, and if the council chose not to follow them, the council had to stay prior to the meeting where a vote takes place and on which president to follow to ensure fairness to all present. There has also been confusion on whether or not a bill that does not pass can be voted on again within the same meeting. Article 2, Section 2, subsection 2 legislation states, if a bill is not approved, then the bill is considered dead, but can still be revised, and should the author want to workshop it with the larger council for reintroduction at a later date. Dead and reintroduction at a later date means exactly that the bill cannot be voted on again on the same day, or in this case, the same meeting. Constitutional language supersedes Robert's Rules of Order. Let me see if that's it. All righty. That was authored by me, Chair of Accountability, in collaboration with Accountability appointed councilors Matthew Rathman and Patrick Severa. Dated April 8th, 2025. Now I open up for any questions from the council or anyone.
As per your recommendations, as per your recommendations, are you suggesting that we make when I hear recommendations, I hear you making amendments to the Constitution? Do we want to put an amendment in there that clarifies what quorum is?
I do not suggest a constitutional change, but that is a discussion point that came up in the Accountability Committee. If the current council wants to clarify that language, they completely have the power to do so. As we just stated, we still have time to do that, to clarify that language.
I just have a question on the definitions that you came up with? Because you say present council. Does that mean current council or does that mean those present at the meeting? Because it says total councilors with voting power. So I presume that means the current council. But the wording present just confuses me. Yeah, Will.
For sure. To clarify that, when I wrote voting counselors with voting power, there is a clause in the Constitution stating if a counselor is removed or like they're under some kind of suspension. Thank you. Like one of the things that happens is their power to vote is removed. That's that part right there to clarify that language. In regards to the question of present versus total, it means present councilor members in the meeting. The reason why we decided to go with that president is because historically there's been counselors that are absent from meetings, and a lot of times that hinders advocacy efforts. And it's not necessarily the counselors present, like those present in meetings, fault that other counselors can't be there. So we agreed that moving forward, we would think that the present counselors would be more effective for advocacy efforts. And also to point out, if a counselor isn't there to vote against something, then at the end of the day, counselors still made a commitment to go to meetings regardless of what's going on. And if they can't, then we came to the conclusion that counselors present trying to push for advocacy should not be penalized for that. I give my time to this guy.
So is this document intended to be used as like accountability committee's decision on interpreting the Constitution, and we can use this for future needs for interpreting the Constitution?
That's a very good question, Sky. I'm glad you asked it. Is that it, or do you have more?
Yeah,
I can
it
answer
is,
that.
and then I have a follow-up.
Okay. So to answer your question, Sky, we would hope that the council, because it's not stated in the Constitution, there is no precedent for it, would have the faith in the accountability committee to set this precedent for TSAC. But currently, we cannot decide that for the council. That is for the entire council to decide. To follow up more on that, we are thinking of adding some kind of potential guidelines to the situation to see, maybe debate it more and like flush it out more versus like the pros and cons of it. But as it stands right now, it would be up to the council to decide if they want to use this as a precedent moving forward. And since it's not clearly stated in the Constitution, the next council would have to pick up this precedent, or there would have to be some kind of guidelines or constitutional amendment put forward.
Okay. And then Brendan, could you scroll up to the 3 bullet points up there so I could read it? Part of my
Let me
next
do that for
follow-up.
you.
Yeah. So I think that you may have worded this in a way that is not getting your point across on one of these points. So on your 3rd bullet point there, simple majority means 51% rounding up to the next whole counselor of the present council. And then in parentheses, you put total counselors with voting power. I think based on what you've been saying here in this meeting, if you would just amend total counselors present with voting power, if you would change that in parentheses, that would get your point across. I think that was Haley's point earlier.
Oh, okay.
Because that looks like you're saying you would need quorum to vote on something, 51% of total counselors that exist. But you're trying to say total counselors present. I don't think you'd need to amend the date or anything else on this because this is what you originally meant and probably what you talked about in that meeting, just the wording.
Just to further clarify what I meant, like total counselors with voting power that are in attendance of that current meeting. Something like that, just so it's a little bit clearer. Because total counselors with voting power would be all of the council.
Right.
Can I also say one more thing? Sorry.
Yes, I could see the confusion there. What was your suggestion, Haley?
Total counselors with voting power who are in attendance at the current meeting.
You're not. I have a different words that I would want to use here. So total counselors with voting power that are voting. I think that's the best way to put it. Because your question there is because that would
Is that to get around abstentions?
that would leave the confusion of abstentions. The idea of an abstention is that it's not just voting no, you're abstaining so that your vote doesn't count in the percentages. That's what abstentions are in most democratic bodies. This would allow counselors that do not want to vote yes or no to abstain, meaning that their vote is not considered in the percentages. That gives meaning to abstentions.
Real quick, I just want to make a motion to extend the meeting time by 15 minutes.
Seconded. Any objections? Any abstentions?
I see that one of our delegates.
Meeting
wants
is
to speak.
extended to 1:30.
Yes, I yield my time to Sarah.
Another thing that it's a problem with the wording of being present is the hybrid model. If they're not present like in person, so their vote doesn't count. That's another thing why I think voting it's a better word. Just saying that.
Back to you, Will.
Thank you. Yes, Sarah, I could see how that might be confusing. I guess in this case, the present, the definition has been set already by in person and online since we've been doing TSAC meetings, the hybrid model that you're referring to. That precedent has been already established. But it is a good point. I mean, I don't see an issue with like slightly maybe including a little bit of more language here. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
I yield.
So what I'm hearing from you is that this is a decision by the Accountability Committee interpreting our Constitution based on an action that happened in a previous meeting. However, you're also stating at the same time that the accountability has never really been given the power to wholly just state this is what we decide. So are you asking the council to then vote on this?
As it requires a vote, it can't be voted on, unfortunately, but I will suggest that it could be voted on the next meeting. It's up to the council. It's really up to the council how they want to handle this, but this is our suggestion to the council. If they want to bring it up for a vote the next meeting, then they should definitely have the authority to do so. But yeah.
I do have a follow-up.
So wouldn't that need to be an amendment then?
No, this is not a type of amendment type deal.
Follow up to what I was saying. Sorry.
This is not an amendment of any type. This is the accountability committee getting all the facts, the video, the people that were there, their testimonies, coming up with our interpretation of the Constitution and all the presidents before that meeting took place, and coming up with a way to suggest actions moving forward for the council, since this has not happened before. So it's really, as long as the actions of the council are within the Constitution, this is more of like within free play. But I think we're going to get very lost in the weeds of this. So this is just a suggestion for the council on how to move forward. Because we could be here all day discussing definitions and context, and like, unless you guys want to be here for the next 2-3 hours, this is our suggestion. How the council wants to move forward is up to the council, as long as it's constitutional. It's like if you say, well, we're going to throw something that counteracts with constitutional language, then that would be a problem that I would bring up. But yes, Guy.
I also want to clarify, I don't feel that the question of whether or not the resolution from last week passed is a vote of the council at this moment. I think the Accountability Committee has interpreted the Constitution to say that it did pass last week, 4-1 is what I'm hearing. I guess 2 people abstained. So the vote that passed this happened last week. We would not be revoting on the resolution. Resolution did pass. We're not affirming via vote that it passed. We are just essentially moving it from our not pass column to our pass column. We're not re-voting on the resolution. I don't feel that it would need to have adequate notice of an agenda to the public for a meeting. Additionally, I also want to clarify something that I found out recently when it comes to Colorado Sunshine laws. There's a difference in state public bodies versus local public bodies. We are classified as a state public body because Metro is a state university. State public bodies do not have to give notice of their agendas prior to their meetings, only their time and location where business is done. We did give notice of time and location. This meeting is available. We could propose a brand new motion right now on the floor, and there's nothing in Colorado Sunshine laws that would prevent us from voting on it. If the council agrees to vote to affirm the accountability's decision on this matter, there's nothing in Colorado Sunshine laws that restricts that. It would restrict like a city council from doing it as a local public body, not a state public body.
I'm gonna let Will respond briefly, but then I do want to get to Mike as well because he's been waiting.
Okay, so just basically what Sky said is correct. This isn't like the resolution, a vote on the resolution itself. It's more on the suggestion of the accountability committee to the council as a whole. Of course, since there's not a precedent on this or even language in the Constitution regarding a situation like this, the council can choose to decide how to handle it as long as it doesn't conflict with, state laws or the constitutional language that we have set forth or any other precedents.
Mike.
So as per these are suggestions, do you, in your professional opinion, do you say someone takes these up and makes these more concrete? Because looking at that confuses me, whereas looking at the Constitution, there's a little bit of gray area there. Do you suggest, because that's what I suggest, that you kind of, what is quorum as per like all that? Or even like other, I want to go more extreme, give your committee more teeth.
We are actually current on working on giving the committee more teeth with those guidelines that will be incorporated into the Constitution. In regards to like the language itself, again, if you're trying to add this into the Constitution, it'd be an amendment to clarify what the definitions are set by the council. Was there more to that question? I'm so sorry.
No, that's it.
Okay.
I personally feel that if this is not just like the accountability committee has the power to interpret the Constitution, this is what we're saying. This needs to be a constitutional amendment and should be presented next week. I don't feel comfortable just voting on it as a council without it being an amendment. Personally, I don't know how the rest of the council feels.
I was gonna say probably what I'm gonna say. Oh, someone else.
We have Mike, and then if somebody wants to yield,
I'll yield my
Sky,
time
then-
to Sky.
I just say I completely agree with Haley. I'd rather see this in, like, I love the suggestion. I'll take the suggestion going forward and see what we can do working on that. I wouldn't be comfortable voting on any of this week.
I think this decision, sorry, but do you want to call me? Okay. I think this paper that was written by the accountability committee has two things that it does. Number one, it affirms that based on current Constitution, based on the way that they're interpreting it, the resolution from last week passed. It additionally adds language to be hopefully used on future resolutions or future votes that would then, if you wanted to make that more concrete in an amendment, you could. I think you guys more so have the objection with that second part being included in this. I think there still is the question of like officially on the record, did the resolution last week pass or not? And I think that is something that could be clarified today based on what you're doing is the council would be affirming the accountability's interpretation of current Constitution, not issuing an amendment of the Constitution saying this is how it'll be done. It's saying based on what happened last week, based on the Constitution as it stood last week, was that a passive vote? Because I think that it's counter to democracy to just let the chair decide that's what happened, which is what happened last week. There was discussion, but there was no vote. I think that the chairs were the ones ultimately said, I did find that failed, but the accountability committee has interpreted the Constitution differently, and I think that the council should vote on whether or not that resolution failed.
The accountability committee was present except for the chair last week as well, so I think that's important to consider. I did ask everybody in the room for interpretation of the Constitution, looking specifically to Matt as a member of the Accountability Committee. And there was mention and there was conversation and discussion. I left that open because I didn't know. I had never been in that decision before. That wasn't me just saying overall, like, this is what it is. That was an open discussion, and we had made the motion and we figured it out. But I'm going to go ahead and pass it over.
I agree with you, Scott. I think it did pass personally from what I've seen. I watched the video as well. I don't mind making that motion just to affirm that piece of there, because I think that piece should be separated from the other suggestions. And that would, because the accountability committee doesn't have teeth, I would agree that the council should probably check the work of the accountability committee, whether we agree or not. If not, throw it back at them, make them go again. But I would motion to accept that first bullet points in the accountability committee's documents. What is the word I'm looking for? Yeah, so to accept that original that point there and vote on that today.
Point of clarity.
Yes.
Is that just to vote that the interpretation would apply to passing that previous resolution, or are you?
I vote to reaffirm that resolution passed last week as per stated in the document.
Thank you for the clarification. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Do we have any objections? Mhm.
Based on like, okay.
Any objections? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Then that passes. So then that previous resolution does pass via that new interpretation. However, I still recommend that for the suggestion going forward that we get some more formal documentation associated with that. And with that, we're going to move forward with our 8 minutes left in the meeting. Anyways, budget committee. Mike, do you have anything from Patrick besides what we mentioned earlier?
Yes. So we do have a student organization. Oh my God, let me pull these up. That is requesting funding. But I do have a question on that funding. So they didn't send a representative, they sent a video. They requested. So it's NACLand. They did this last year, but we gave them money last year, I'm pretty sure. But then they canceled the event last minute, and now they're asking for funding again. So I'd like to ask that question, where'd that funding go last year and how, like, I don't mind giving them funding, but I'd like them to, instead of sending a video representative, that actually send a person we can ask questions to. And I do think, like, if you're asking for funding, you should have a person there. I think it's a little disrespectful that you didn't send someone, in my opinion.
No, but maybe if you could bring that up with Patrick and maybe see if we could get them in person to answer questions before we approve the funding for that. That would be awesome. Nobody's here from PR. However, they have 2 resolutions that they need to bring out next week and maybe a special session for one next week. So if y'all are watching this, I'm watching you. Anyways, sustainability committee, our resolution passed. That's basically all we have. Be on the lookout for a sign-up sheet from me and Victor for you guys helping with tabling for that event because I do have class that day. Any update from faculty center or staff center besides what you mentioned?
Yeah, just a quick one. They're doing a lot of stuff in their handbook. A lot of it is more for their internal, like, employee stuff. But one that they talked about this week that would affect students in the 26 to 27 school year is around mandatory participation deadlines. And it's also a way to help protect students as well. So if they don't participate in a certain time frame in their class, then it'll actually send a notification to the registrar to actually potentially drop them from that class and be able to get them some money back. But that was about it. That would go to more student focused outside of what I said about elections and the King Supers.
Perfect. Any updates coming from our delegates?
I yield my time. Oh, wait.
We don't need to yield.
Sorry, I apologize. I'm so caught up in that. So
You're
sorry.
totally fine.
I
Sky.
could yield it. No. Hi. Hopefully next week we'll be putting forward a resolution in regards to supporting the ITS department's name change procedures changes. I've been working closely with Gita and with LGBT Resource Center. I need to wholly draft this again because the way I drafted it before was not good. And I'm looking for support from counselors on that. Please reach out. Additionally, for the issue that was handled today by the Accountability Committee and that came up last week, I really don't like that there was that confusion. I think that confusion stemmed out of the fact that we haven't really had things be close to failing in the past. And I really want to have that cleared up in constitutional language. And I would love to work with any counselor that wants to start drafting a constitutional amendment to be proposed the next week on that, or I think we have 2 weeks to propose it, but I would love to work on that. Also on the amendment that I heard today that Mike is working on, I would love to collaborate with you on it. I do believe there may be parts of it that may be against Colorado statutes, and I want to meet with some attorney, David Fine or Skip Spear, regarding it. But if that's possible, I want that to be how it is, like you're asking. It's just a matter of if it's possible. Yeah.
Point of clarification on your first one about the resolution for the name change policy. Super cool. Just keep in mind that you do have to co-author with a counselor. So I would highly recommend bringing in a counselor early on in the process rather than authoring it yourself and then just having them be on there for optics, essentially, and just actually working collaboratively
Can
with
I
the counselor
respond
on
to
that.
Please?
Wait, what?
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
I absolutely agree. That was me just asking for someone to help me author it. I had started the bones of one and started meeting with some of the stakeholders, people that are involved with it. I have not authored it yet. The people that I've had interest expressed from 2 different counselors to help me author this. And I just asked for people to help me with that and looking for help with that. So please reach out on that issue.
As far as the Colorado Revised Statutes, though, for getting students into SACAB, it says that they come from the student governing body. It does not clarify at all on how they get appointed, elected, or anything else. And some of the other schools already take the other approach of they actually hire people instead of even actually having vote them in by the whole school.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to extend the meeting another 15 minutes.
Seconded.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Perfect. Sarah, do you have an update? No? Okay, perfect. Chase or Irvi, do you guys have any updates you'd like to share? It's okay if not.
No, I don't have any updates. Sorry.
Thank you, Irvi. No worries. Don't apologize.
No, I'm just sitting in to listen.
Perfect. No worries. Thank you, Chase. Awesome. If no further delegate updates, we'll move into open floor announcements. I do have on here a note about the ad hoc, but I know
We're good with that. We'll work. We're good with that.
talked about that a little bit loosely. Any I don't know. My co-chair could help me figure out the order of who raised their hands first. That would be cool.
It was Mike.
Mike.
I just have a quick shout out to Susanna. The reason she's not here is because she's currently like the person in charge of a leadership conference right now. They're in the Tivoli right now. That's where I was volunteering. I will go back to volunteering afterwards. Yeah, so she's the one in charge, laying down the hammer, getting everything done there. So that's why she's not here. So quick shout out to her.
And elaborate on that a little bit further. What is she doing? That's so amazing that's at the leadership conference.
She's leading it. She planned it. She's the chair of it.
But what is it?
Oh, it's a Latina Youth Leadership Conference. That's what. Yes. So yes. So that's what she's doing. I'm volunteering as well. So they're doing great work. And that room is filled with young people going to college. So that's pretty awesome. Young women, people of color going to college. So
Matt?
So I have 2 things. One just minor thing on the ad hoc committee. For the next meetings, I will include all TSAC counselors in the invites. That is not, even if I accidentally say it's like you're a required person, it's not a requirement. I just want to make sure that everybody who wants to share their voice in that environment has the opportunity. And my second thing is I would kind of like to hear an update from UpBack.
Hey, Amelia, do you have an update from UpBack?
Anything that has
In
happened, we haven't heard or at least I haven't heard much of any updates in a good while from what's going on in Upback, but even Dr. Simpkins has referenced, even in previous meetings that he's come in, that there's a lot of important stuff going through Upback and a lot of the concerns around the budget.
Yeah, I mean, the budget. So today we talked about how we received 3 million extra that we didn't suspect to receive from the state, but because we are already kind of in a deficit mode, that 3 million actually doesn't mean anything. And so they had to cut the tennis program. And something that I struggle with is understanding the different buckets. So there's like capital funds, and then there's state funds, and then there's the MSU Denver Foundation Fund. And so the way that the funds work, I don't completely understand yet, but I know that those are three primary sources of our buckets. But we had people come in today and give us a presentation about athletics and about those cuts, why those cuts were made. And at the end of legislative session, we will know more once the governor finalizes his budget. But I was not there last week because I was out at a conference, just like I wasn't here at TSAC either. But there were a lot of presentations that were given, and so I will have a further update next week at our meeting when I rewatch that this weekend. But if you ever want the notes from those meetings, I can share those with you as well. It's a lot to understand and interpret at once because it's fiscal state budget policy and the way that that then trickles down to our university. So it's not always kind of like a immediate update, short, sweet, and can just be like easily digestible. It's like a, okay, let's sit down and look at this document sort of thing. So for anybody interested, I would be happy to go over that.
Matt?
I wouldn't mind having them sent to me. And also I wanted to ask a question of you. Do you need support in digesting those documents?
I mean, support never hurts, so we can chat about that offline. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
I think it also could be helpful maybe in the future, maybe not necessarily for you, Amelia, but maybe for people that are going to be on the council next year, for whoever's the back rep, maybe adding some time onto the agenda when there's big things that need to be discussed that aren't going to be able to fit in just a short and sweet update. That way the council is still being informed of the work that's going on there, but in a manner that there can be like a more robust conversation to it. So not necessarily for you, Amelia, because I know we're approaching the end of the semester, but if that would be helpful, you're always more than welcome to add that to the agenda if it's a bigger conversation, but just maybe a suggestion moving forward. I'm going to yield to Scott.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I'm confused on the buckets that the money comes from. If it's the capital, we get so much from the foundation, we get so much from the state funding, we get tuition. Because of that, over the last week, I've been attempting to get a meeting with the budget director at MSU Denver. I just heard back. I have a meeting on Tuesday, April 15th from 1:15 to 1:45 with the budget director to talk about just that. Amelia, I would love for you to be there, and any counselor or member of student government that wants to show up, I'm sure you would be welcome. I will need to confirm with him first, but I would love 1:15 on Tuesday, this Tuesday. And I could also make it hybrid if you can't be there in person, but I would love to have that shared.
And what was the name of the person you're meeting with?
Andrew Ra. I don't know how to say his last name. He's the budget director, deputy CFO.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Will?
I just want to be transparent because I wasn't able to finish my committee updates, but thank you to all the delegates. Thank you to all the delegates who've shown up and participated so far. I do have to update the council that there is one delegate that we are currently working with to make sure that they fulfill their requirements. If that delegate does not reach back out to us soon, there might be talks of withholding their stipend. Just for the council to know. It's coming. It might come up.
Perfect. I apologize for that, Will, and in future reference, if I ever accidentally end your announcements early, just go ahead and let me know before open floor announcements, and we'll get right back to them instead of waiting until then. Without further ado, our fearless advisor, you have 10 minutes.
I don't really have any updates. I think today had great discussion, so I really applaud you all for having good decorum. I know some of these conversations are hard to have. Please note, though, that for everyone here, it's hard to say this, but it's important to dissent at times, and that's okay. And as long as you're all walking away, we're not yelling and screaming at one another, I think that is okay. So, and just from my perspective, I don't expect anything to be perfect. You all are students, students first. And so we're going to make mistakes and we need to be okay with that. And that's okay. Okay. Last thing I'll say is have a good weekend.
Mike,
Without further ado, I motion to end the meeting.
seconded.
Second.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Have a great weekend, y'all.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, you would. Oh, you would.
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye. What?
Ended. Sorry, Vic.
Your abstention came too late, and it would have passed anyways.